this is Vahid from VRF Education channel, and welcome to the third session of database programming in Python. So far, we have learned how to connect to a database and create tables inside it, and then insert some rows inside tables. In this session, we are going to check the most interesting part of database programming, querying over tables. Using query, we can retrieve data, different type of data. And in this session, we just focus on the basics of querying data. And in upcoming sessions, we are getting into details for this operation. So for this purpose, we need to pass our select command using one of fetchall, fetchone, and fetchmany methods. Each one has its own characteristics. For example, when we want to query over our primary key, we can use fetch1. This method gonna return only one record or none at all. And also with fetchmany, we can limit the size of output, but we cannot implement true pagination using fetchmany. And we're going to see how we can implement pagination in our query in Python. So let's go and see how these methods gonna work. Okay, let's see how we can fetch data from our student table. The process is somehow like the step that we did for inserting a row into a student's table. We need to connect to a database and then get a cursor object and provide a SQL statement. This time select the statement and execute it. And from this step, we don't need to commit anything because we are not going to apply some changes to the database. We just want to retrieve data. And after that, using one of the methods such as fetchall or fetchmany or fetch1, we're going to retrieve some rows from the database and do some logic in our application. So these are the methods that we created in previous sessions. This time I'm going to create a method named getAll, and this is going to print all the data or all the students' information in the console. So the process is somehow like what we did for insertion. So I'm going to make a copy here and collapse it, so paste it here. So we create a connection, we get a cursor, we don't need this connected to DB anymore, and this time we just need a query, so this should be changed to select a statement, and I'm gonna back to it very soon. And we're going to use execute and passing this query as a parameter, and we don't have any extra parameter here. We just want to run a query, and we don't need this commit method. So again, after this process done, we need to close the cursor and close the connection here. And let's comment these lines, and I'm gonna call getAll method. That's it. So here I need to add a select statement here. This is the primary things that we can do. Select all the columns or asterisks from students. So I need to run this query from over the students table, and after execute it, I'm going to say students equal to cursor dot fetch all. Please fetch all the records from this query for me. And after that, I'm going to say print what? Print number of students is, and then length of a students list, students, and that's it. So let's run and see what we have. If I run the application, it says you already have 7 students in your table. Let's see if it's true or not. I'm going to open it one more time. Yeah, we have 7 rows here. Okay, the length is correct. Now let's go and print all the students' information in this window in the output. For this purpose, I'm going to say, let's close the cursor, and for student std in students, please print this part, print string that terminated with \n, and we have id dash name dash email and dash register date. So each time I'm going to say std0 first column, std1, std2, and std3. So I get access to the column using their index, and the index is 0 based. So let's see what we have. Okay, we can get rid of this \n, and let's run it one more time. You can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and different rows that we inserted in previous session. Okay, so this is the first way that we can use to print data print data in the output. And just like insert, we can parameterize our SQL statement here. And for example, we want to look for a specific student with some predefined ID. So let's make a copy. Well, let's change it here. We don't need to create another method. I'm going to say I'm looking for a student where ID equal to something. Again, we are going to parameterize our SQL statement and pass the parameter here. Imagine that I'm looking for let's change it. I'm going to make a copy of this method. It's for get all, and I'm going to say get by ID. Okay, and an ID should be passed here. So this time I'm going to say select all columns from a student table where ID equals to something that I'm going to provide for you. And inside the execute method, we need to pass the ID as a tuple. Don't forget to put comma here. So we are assumed to pass a tuple here. And then I'm going to call fetch all method, and the other things is the same. So this time I'm going to say gets by ID, and looking for ID 3, for example. Let's run. This time we only have one item, and this is the item that we fetch from database. So what if I pass something that is not existing inside database? So it says number of students is 0. So because we have an empty list here, empty list for students, so we are not iterate over anything, and then the loop is jump over this statement, and the execution is finished. We have another method that we can use instead of fetch all when we want to query over our primary key. So when we are querying over our primary key, we only have one record or nothing, just like we did here. So I'm gonna change it to fetch one, and this time we only have one row, not a list of items. So we don't need to iterate over anything. And I'm going to change it to a student. Let's make a, yeah, that's it. It's a student, and we don't need to iterate over anything. And I'm going to change it also to std. So let's remove this index. Yeah, let's have this index thing. That's okay. So I fetch one student, and we don't need this also. And I'm going to print it. So let's see. I'm looking for a person with the ID of 3. Again, we'll retrieve Amin from database. And if I change it to 30, if I run, you might see some errors. It says non-type object is not subscriptable. So when fetch one doesn't able to fetch anything or as a result of this statement, it's going to return none. So every time we want to work with the result of fetch one method, we need to check if std is not equal to none, then go ahead and print something for me. Else print, for example, not found, something like this. So let's try. It says not found, and if we again looking for example ID2, this time server going to be fetched from our database. So this is the way that you should do. Check for none, and after that, if the result is something rather than none, then you can do other things that you want to do with the fetch data. Another method is fetch many. Fetch many is used somehow to fetch some exact number of records from database. So I'm gonna make a copy of this method and then paste it. It says get by paging, for example. Get by paging, and I'm gonna pass a number here. So everything is just as it is. This time we need to call fetch many method and provide that number to this method. And I'm gonna say get by paging, for example, 3. Although we have 7 different rows in our table, this query gonna return first 3 rows. Okay, here it says we have 3 rows, and 1 through 3, these are rows that we fetch from our table using fetch many. So we can use fetch many to limit our output size. Well, this is not a true pagination. It's gonna return first n records of our tables. So let's see how we can create a true pagination. So I'm gonna say get by paging, and this time I'm gonna say page number and size. And this time we're going to change our queries. So I'm gonna say limit the output, and we need to pass the offset and limit that we want to fetch from our database. So I'm gonna say, for example, let's make it very static. I'm gonna say the offset is, for example, 3, and I'm looking for next 3 items. So this time I'm gonna use fetchall and see what is the output. Let's clear it out and run it. So it's missing 1 parameter, and I'm going to say 3 and 3. Well, these are statics right now. So this time you can see we skip first 3 items, and then we fetch 4, 5, and 6 because we add this item to the end of our SQL statement. Now let's parameterize it. I'm going to say limit by something, and the offset is something, and limit is something else. I'm going to provide it for you, and here inside the execute method we again going to pass a tuple contains those parameters, page and size. Okay, and I'm going to say okay, pass 2 items, and I'm looking for next 2 items. That's it. So we just pass 1 and 2, and the return is 2, 3, and 4. So this is the way that you can paginate your data, because most of the time we are not going to retrieve all the data from our database and load it into the memory, and we might suffer from not enough memory exception. So by this approach you can limit the output of your select statement. These are the different way of fetching data from students table. So I hope you enjoyed. Until next session, and see how we can update current data in our tables. Goodbye. By the way, I forgot to tell that we are getting back to select and make more queries in future, because this is the most interesting part for data scientists, the one that who really wants to work with data. Sometimes we assume that we have some data in our database, and we need to fetch different type of data or join different tables and see different type of data. We will get back to that after checking the basic routes. Okay, till next session, goodbye.